This hourly segment is brought to you by IDT. Eliminate paper files with the IoT Smart Connected Scanning Device. Find them at ready4IDT.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Have you heard about young Greta Thunberg's new book?
Oh, yeah, something about vegans and batteries on jet planes, some imaginary world she lives with rainbows and unicorns.
Here's Greta promoting her book.
War is always bad, specifically for
bad?
the planet. If we want to continue fighting battles like environmentally conscious humans, we must make the change to sustainable tanks and weaponry. There are so many new concepts for battery-powered fighter jets that can carry many more missiles, biodegradable missiles, of course. Something literally everybody can do to stop this nonsense is, for example, block the roads to gardens and farms so the plants don't get overrun by these heavy, heavy tanks. Hand grenades, very important. If you use hand grenades, please use vegan grenades. No animal should have to give their life for all this mayhem and chaos. They have a special sticker on them. You really can't miss them in the grenade market or wherever you buy them. Yeah, I cover all of this and more in my newest book, Vegan Wars.
Vegan grenades? I didn't know that was a thing.
So this is great. This is Sacha Baron Cohen quality. That's not actually what Greta said in this interview that she did. Somebody dubbed that in over what she said. She's got a new book out called The Climate Book. So that was somebody spoofing her and spoofing her new book. But it's the point is that a lot of people were fooled by it because that's how ridiculous she is, and that's how ridiculous this eco-supremacist movement is. And also,
They had me.
Yeah, it's a total spoof.
Okay.
But they had a lot of people.
Right.
And that tells you something about how serious Greta Thunberg and people like her should be taken. It's also an expensive movement. A good piece over at Zero Hedge on the actual cost of electric batteries. Since, we got that Chicom plant coming to Manteno, I thought you might want to know, not to mention if you're ever in the market for a new car. I mean, it's really something. Now, keep in mind that the average price to replace a battery in a gasoline fuel car is like $100 to $200. The average price for an EV is $10,000. But listen to the cost of these cars. 2025 Cadillac Escalade, nickel, cobalt, manganese, aluminum battery. The battery cost is $22,500. The total cost is $130,000. Tesla Model S, nickel, cobalt, aluminum battery. That's $12,000 on a car that costs $88,000. The Ram 1500 REV, nickel, cobalt, manganese battery. The battery costs almost $26,000 on an $81,000 car. Rivian delivery van, battery costs $13,000, a little over $13,000 on a car that's a little over, or a van that's over a little over $52,000. Ford Mustang, lithium ion phosphate battery.
How much?
About $7,000 for the battery on a $43,000 car. I mean, just to give you an example.
That's real big money.
The lithium nickel cobalt aluminum batteries have an average price of about $120 per kilowatt hour, while the lithium nickel cobalt manganese batteries, slightly lower price point at about $112. Both contain significant nickel proportions, increasing the battery's energy density to allow for longer range. And so, this is the brave new world, and this is obviously the need for state and federal subsidies to make this, even remotely affordable for most people as these mandates are imposed. But just to give you sort of, again, the real world implications, like we're talking about the real world implications of open borders and sanctuary states. Those price points, how do those grab you? For more on this, we're pleased to be joined, as always, by Steve Moore, who is an economist and the author of Govzilla. Steve, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, guys. And I want to just be on record that I am in favor of biodegradable missiles. I think they're much more humane.
What about vegan grenades, Stephen Moore? How do you feel about those? There's a sticker on them.
I mean, I have to say that I didn't know it was a parody until the very end.
No, they did a great job.
I didn't either.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
great job.
And
Well,
I
you know,
have to say that, by the way, some of the stuff, it is so out there. But I wrote a report on our hotline the other day. The United Nations, they're an important organization, right, has basically issued a report saying it's time to stop using concrete and steel for buildings. And instead, and this is not a parody. I mean, this is not a parody. Instead of using concrete and steel, we should use bamboo shoots and wood and biomass. I don't even know what biomass is, by the way, to build buildings. We're going to build the they don't even call it the Sears Tower anymore, right? But we're going to build the John Hancock building with wood and bamboo shoots.
Yeah, we're gonna go like more. We're gonna do adobes, clay, and that's we're gonna go back. Go back to our origins as a country, on the plains. It's interesting though.
Well, wait a minute. It goes back further than that. They want to take us back to the Stone Age. Some of these people want to get rid of the wheel. The wheel. That was a bad invention. That started to destroy the planet.
There's no question. It led to ease of transportation and things like that, which are bad news. But the good news is coming from our friends the Swiss that it seems at least some people are rejecting the silliness of this eco-supremacist movement.
Yeah, that's right. And so you have some countries. In fact, Europe has really moved pretty aggressively against green energy. This is a story that nobody reports. The New York Times doesn't report this. The Chicago Tribune, the L.A. Times, none of the Washington Post. They don't report that the European countries 10 to 15 years ago tried the whole green energy. They were all in on green energy. We're going to build windmills and solar panels, and it was a complete failure, especially in Germany. Germany crippled its economy. And so now they're moving back to natural gas and nuclear power and other forms of energy, while we continue to shut down our coal plants, shut down our natural gas plants, and play right into the hands of our enemies. I mean, look, green energy is, for the most part, it's a niche form of energy. We could maybe get 10 or 15% of our energy from wind and solar power, with a big push. But there is a movement out there that is incredibly devious and sinister that even many American Fortune 100 companies signed on to, called net zero. And net zero is this lunatic idea that we're going to go from using getting 70% of our energy, which is what we do today. 70% of our energy comes from oil, gas, and coal. And we're going to go from 70% to zero in the next 25 years. That will absolutely annihilate the U.S. economy. And we will go back to being we'll be one of the poorest countries on the planet, but we'll save the planet.
I wanted to, before we get to your take on the speakership that's in flux here, there's some more good news. Let's try to accentuate the positive before we get to things that are a little bit more chaotic and uneven. In your newsletter, Unleash Prosperity, we see a couple of good things happening. One of them is the ESG investing. Speaking of another silly movement,
way down.
That's way down. Speak to that.
Yeah, well, it doesn't. It's a bad deal for investors, and so ESG gets lower returns. And by the way, for people who don't know what the ESG term means, it means investing in climate change and social justice and racial preferences and things like that. Now, you may be for or against those things, but I always thought, I'm at old-fashioned. I always thought the purpose of a company was to make money for the shareholders of the company. I know that's a very old-fashioned idea, but they're sacrificing returns, for these crazy left-wing ideas. Well, that was all the fad 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. There's a total rebellion now against that. And I think one of the things, and I'd like your guys' reaction to this, I think the corporate America was completely spooked by what happened with Bud Light. I mean, that was a huge thing. And these idiots on Madison Avenue, they are so out of touch with real America. Like, what the hell just went on? All we did was put some crazy transvestite on the can a beer can, and all of a sudden, our profits disappear by $30 billion. So they're not attuned with the fact that you have, half of the voters in this country are conservative.
Yeah, well, that's right, and there was, I think there was a ripple effect to that, no question. Of course, it still is happening to Bud Light too, in terms of their sales being down. And
by the way, I think that brand is done. I think they have completely destroyed that brand. And the thing about that story is they brought in this woman to run that campaign who was like the top of her class, I think, at Harvard Business School. She was, she was like the wonder kind. She was going to be the one who took, Anheuser-Busch to the moon, and it crashed. And she was a perfect example of some kind of highfalutin, university student who know nothing about America.
She wanted to expand the sales, and the reason behind that, she's like, we want more than just frat guys drinking our beer.
Mm-hmm. Well,
she didn't. Her market study, she didn't do a good job.
No more frat guys drinking that beer. That's a good.
There you go.
That.
If you want to expand your sales, the first thing you do is you insult half of your customers. That's a really good idea.
Exactly. On the speakership, is Mike Johnson? Is he enough of a consensus candidate to finally get someone across the finish line?
I mean, my God, he's the flavor of the day. But who knows? I mean, this has become such a three-ring circus. It's such a black eye for Republicans. I'm embarrassed to call myself a Republican. Steve Scalise would have been a great speaker. Jim Jordan would have been a great speaker. Byron Donalds would have been a great speaker. I think Kevin McCarthy was a good speaker. And what the hell is going on with these idiots? I mean, they are looking like a bunch of clowns. We had a cartoon in our hotline the other day of a picture of the House floor, and it was all filled with clowns. And one of our readers wrote in and said, "This is a total insult to clowns." But
yeah, right.
They look completely incompetent, and we got to get a speaker. And what worries me, like Mike Johnson seems fine to me. I don't really know him very well. I know some of those others a lot better, but I'm worried that they're what we're getting is like least common denominator speaker, someone who can. So you need somebody strong. You need firm. We need a general House Republican caucus, not a Beetle Bailey.
I think we need Kevin McCarthy back. I mean, he's been such a leader, a great leader, and he's been on all the cable stations, and he's doing a great job.
Yeah.
Now, do you think Matt Gaetz has egg in his face after all this?
Totally agree.
Yep. What about Matt Gaetz? Do you think does he have egg in his face after all of this?
I would say so. Yeah, I would say definitely. And, this is what happens when you open a Pandora's box that you don't know what's going to come out. But I'm totally with you. I mean, bring back Kevin McCarthy. What people don't understand, and I know a lot of your listeners probably don't like Kevin McCarthy, and I've had run-ins with Kevin McCarthy over the years, for sure. But you know what he does better than anybody else? One of the most important roles of the Speaker of the House. You know what that is, Dan?
Tell me.
Raising money.
Yeah, well, that's true.
You can't have a House majority if you don't have somebody raising $100 to $200 million, and Kevin McCarthy does that. And, if you don't have somebody doing that, you're going to lose the House of Representatives, and you're going to have a speaker, was it Jeffries? Is that the Democrat running the House now?
Hakeem Jeffries,
Hakeem Jeffries. Is that what we want?
That's a good question. I guess we're going to find out the answer as this plays itself out. Stephen Moore, economist and GovZilla author. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Okay, guys. Have a great week. Take care.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.